policy of back then, you could walk up to the door and say, "Can I stay the night?" And most people would say yes. And that's what Garrett does, not knowing that who Booth and Harold really are. And he lets them stay the night, and the next morning they get up, and Garrett reads the paper to his kids like they do almost every morning, especially Sundays. And he's talking to his kids and says, how could anyone do this? They killed the president. And Garrett's a Southern guy. He supports the Confederacy, but he understands what happened is just going to be a big failure. It might start another war. Unfortunately, he does not know that the guy did it is sitting right next to him. Unfortunately for him, I would think if he would have known, he would have probably killed Booth and Harold. Because he's very upset later knowing that he killed these guys into his house. But that night, Booth and Harold say, "Can we stay one more night?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, why not? Nothing wrong with that." But, Harold says, "We should probably go to the barn. There might be people coming, it'd be a lot easier escape for us." And Booth goes, "Okay, well then you can go to Bowling Green and get us a buggy then." And what they're promised is that there's supposed to be a lot of Confederates there. Unfortunately, when Harold gets there, he finds the opposite. He sees a bunch of Union cavalry, and he about grabs his pants. He is so nervous because what he had been told is not true. So he sprints all the way back to Garrett's farm and says, "Booth, there are Union cavalry about 20 miles away from us." And Booth is like, "Don't worry about it. They're not going to come today." Unfortunately, they show up early in the morning, knock on Garrett's door. He's like, "Have you seen these two guys?" He's like, "Yeah, they're in the barn." So Garrett shows them down to the barn, and two colonels from the Union cavalry knock on the door and say, "Booth and Harold?" And they're like, "Yes." He's like, "Oh, great. We got them now." So he says, "Well, you have two options. You can either come out now, or we can burn this sucker down." And they're like, "Well, we'll never come out." And he's like, "Okay, let's burn this puppy up." And they do. And it is then that Harold decides that I'm going to give up and runs out of it and surrenders. But Booth is very optimistic, thinking that he's going to make it out of this alive. She obviously doesn't. And he would later die on the front porch up here. But after they set it on fire, Boston Corbett, who was a strange fellow, I don't know if you guys remember the last time I said that he was instituted in a mental facility.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had castrated himself. He's a wonderful guy. So, but he ends up peeking through the hole in one of the barn slits and shoots Booth and paralyzes him. He falls to the ground. Now, I don't know if we have any other advocates in here, but I would think it would be very hard to shoot someone in the early morning with a bunch of smoke and everywhere and hit him so perfect that you paralyze him right away. So, but he does, and Booth is dragged out onto the porch of Garrett's farm, and he dies about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, and Booth says his last words, "Tell my mother I died for my country." And that is where Marianne Holmes finally realizes that what she had seen in the flames is true. He did do something for his country. Now, like we said earlier, was it good, was it bad? It's kind of up to you guys to decide. But
Where did he hit John Wilkes Booth?
hit him in the neck.
Oh. Like in the spine?
Yeah. And that's a pretty good shot. So all these guys are rounded up. Lewis Powell, George Astaroth, David Harold, and Mary Surratt, and they're all arrested and taken to trial. And back then, and still today, you guys might know, you can't be put on trial by other than jury or peers. So in this case, they decided to go in a military tribunal, which is illegal. If you get arrested for shoplifting, you can't go in front of the military and be tried. You have to go in front of your friends. And so it ended up being a huge controversy. They were all sentenced to hang, justifiably, maybe not for Mary Surratt. She was the first woman to be ever hung by the United States government, or executed, I guess. And this, set aside these 4 guys. This is an actual picture from 1865. So you can imagine.
Jeez, he was tall.
Yeah, he was a really, really tall guy. And these two, not that right away. What's supposed to happen is the floor drops, and you're not supposed to die right away. Fortunately, these guys' noose were not tightly wrapped, and they ended up suffocating for about 10 minutes until they finally died. So, kind of got what's coming to them. But the conspiracies that I found, some of them are quite funny, I think. What actually happened. There's the ones about the Pope sending him or Booth letters, but there's also ones of them trying to implant yellow fever into Lincoln's collar, so he would contract yellow fever and die. There's also ones of trying to bomb the White House. Unfortunately, that plan failed because they couldn't get the ammunition that they needed. And then there's my favorite. It is the one where a guy from Texas is a lawyer. He was kind of down on his luck, and he's thinking to himself, "Hey, I found a way to get some money." So he hears about this guy that died in Oklahoma, and he has the same similar story that Booth would have had. He's from D.C., and he traveled in 1865, 1866 down to Oklahoma, where he died later in the 1900s, or I think it's the 1920s. And he thought to himself, "Wow, I think I have Booth here." So he ends up mummifying him and taking him around the country and telling people that he has John Wilkes Booth's body. It is only until the FBI comes and says, "By the way, this is not John Wilkes Booth, this is a guy from Oklahoma." And they find out, and he's like, "That, you guys are nuts." So they take the body, ends up writing a book about what he did, and then sells about 1,000 copies. And then people started discrediting him and be like, "Don't ever listen to this guy ever again. He's just a wacko." And he ends up spending the rest of his life pretty miserable. And that's about it. So, do you guys want to watch the video clip that I have?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
We have about 5 minutes. I mean, you guys.
Why did the other 2 guys get hurt? Because they were
Like the other 2 guys, so
like the girl and the other guy.
the girl, well, she owned the boarding house where they would meet, and, it's just kind of like by association. She was there, so I guess she kind of supposedly knew what was going on. My take on it is that she kind of had an idea, but what she claims is that she had actually no idea what was going on. They're just boarders.
Why did she give them ammunition and liquor?
That's what I think. She claims that she doesn't know anything about that, but a Lois Whiteman, who was a tenant and also worked at the tavern, describes it, and he's like, "Yeah, she gave me the orders to get these guys guns." And David Harold, obviously, he was with Booth when Booth was killed, so he's just automatically, a part of it.
Everybody that they possibly could think of that they contacted or anything, wasn't that the first place they stopped after the assassination? They go to Sherrod's house, right? Well, pretty much.
Well, the first place they actually went was the National Hotel where Booth had been staying a couple nights before, and that's where they found a lot of messages and stuff, and that's where they found out about Sherrod's.
No, I'm sorry, not that. Where did Booth go right out? They went to Sherrod's house after the assassination?
Yeah, they went to the tavern right outside.
Yeah. So that was the first stop. They even thought that Dr. Mudd was involved. They thought every place they stopped might be involved. And every one of them almost got hung for it. Even Dr. Mudd, who had nothing to do with it.
Dr. Mudd and the other 2 guys, Laughlin and Arnold, they were all arrested, and I think it was Arnold and Mudd who spent the rest of their lives in prison, and I think the other guy got off and he pardoned.
Yeah, I think a couple of those guys, like Mudd, I think were pardoned eventually.
Yeah, it got to be the point where it was like, well, I guess they didn't really,
That's where you get that. Have you ever heard like your name was drugged through the mud? I don't know if you ever heard that saying, it is a saying, and it was come back from Dr. Mudd, because he had, I mean, he's a doctor, he's supposed to fix people.
Me? Okay, there were seven people that helped him. How come only 4 of them got hung?
Because when they put him in the trial, O'Laughlin, Arnold, and Mudd were just, they didn't really have anything to do with it. I mean, they knew about Soldier's Home and they knew about Dr. Mudd helping them, but they didn't really have anything to do with the actual killing, so they decided to just, spend the rest of their lives in prisons. I mean, the main people are the ones that got killed.
How many months did they spend on the road when they were going away from DC?
They only spent about 12 days. He was killed on the 26th, and he left on.
They must have traveled pretty fast.
Yeah, they were on horseback, but they also it was like 4 days that they spent in the swamp. That's where Booth writes most of his journal, which I have copies of. I know you guys got some last year, but I kind of updated them this time. They're a little nicer and a little neater. So if you guys want some, I have copies of his journal, what he wrote.
Did the Garrett guy get on a trial or anything, or was he off?
Nope, because he decided to help them, their main thing against it was, you helped us find them, we're not going to do anything with you. Because, again, most people had no idea. Though Mudd knew Harold, didn't think anything like this would happen. I mean, it's just kind of like if someone were to kill the president now, and you wouldn't really expect, I wouldn't expect Mr. Johnson to be the one, So,
Never know.
never know. So,
You'd never think Grace could do it, but she's fired up about Barack Obama.
Let's watch a video. I don't have time to watch a video.
how much time do we have left?
We don't have time.
Okay.
Now, we might have, maybe I can get the video from him or figure it out. I'll figure something out for you. So it's an alright, yeah, I mean, it's definitely right on track. It was pretty good. I'll make sure to get it from you. Last thing, it's kind of not really on topic here. I would like to read you guys an email really quick. Good morning, Mr. Johnson and class. I am most honored by your salutations. Congratulations to all you completing another semester. Blah, blah, blah. I'll read the rest tomorrow. But I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Jeff Fortenberry.
Kale Geese.
Yeah, Kate.
I'll read the rest of it
So our test isn't going to be
Thursday. Test will be Thursday.
God.
Who says salutations anymore?
Kale Geese.
I remember watching all the attempts of the assassination.
My mom just texted me and she said that they're changing the East High final schedules because they're supposed to get 6 to 7 inches of snow.
Lovely.
Tomorrow at least.
That's what I'm saying.